Prostitutes Collective will talk about the recent and important win in passing Senate Bill 233 that makes immunity for prostitution arrest when you're reporting crime, or if you're carrying condoms.
Hi everybody, what a great panel. I really learned a lot. I'm really glad to be here. The US Prostitutes Collective, as has been mentioned, is a national network of sex workers and former sex workers, and we're campaigning for decriminalization and for justice, for compensation, for resources for sex workers. Because as it's been mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of poverty, and poverty is on the increase. And also, it was also mentioned that more women have been forced onto the streets because of foster sister. But we're seeing a rise in prostitution because of poverty, and we're campaigning against poverty because the statistics have come out that 73% of poor people in the US are women and children, and also that in 1 out of 25 families in the US are living on $2 a day. Now, with that kind of, those kind of statistics, that's why are people surprised that there are women going into prostitution and that there's so many single mothers. We find a lot of single mothers are going in, driven into sex work out of poverty. And speakers, have addressed the terrible impact of criminalization that it has on sex workers' lives. And, that's why we're campaigning for criminalization. But, the decriminalization hearing in DC is just a marker of the rising and vocal struggle that sex workers are making. And it's on the rise and increasing, and the movement is really getting strong. We've seen over the last few years just a growing movement, and it's really exciting. And there's also a bill in New York City to decriminalize sex work. So we have 2 decriminalization bills right now, and that's really big. But we've had some recent victories, especially in California, that I wanted to say about. And the first one was, it began in 2014 when a number of us sex worker organizations got together to address and figure out what to do about the fact that sex workers going to the police to report violence would ourselves be faced with questions by the police, not interested in what the violence that happened, but what were you doing that night, where were you working, more interested in investigating the sex work part of it. And so most sex workers don't go to the police and report violence because the relationship between the police and sex workers has been so bad. And women, there's a long history of sex workers, of the police trying to get money out of sex workers when they arrest them, telling them if they have sex with them, then they won't arrest them. They have sex anyway and arrest them. That kind of stuff goes on all the time. So why would sex workers, when they've been victims of violence, and we've heard a lot about the kind of violence sex workers suffer, why would they go and report to the police if instead they're going to investigate why they were working in sex work? And so we got together and decided we were going to, in San Francisco, get the police and the district attorney's office to agree to policies where they would agree not to arrest sex workers and prosecute when sex workers were reported to the police as victims of violence. And so it took, we had to meet with we started meeting, and we actually had backing from other organizations, from LGBT, from a women's commission in San Francisco, and the Human Rights Commission, and public defenders. And so we started meeting with the police and the district attorney's office and all these groups. And the first meeting, there were about 16 of us, and it was sex worker led. We were the ones that were really going to set the terms of what kind of policies we want. It took about 6 months to get the first policy from the district attorney's office. They were mostly younger people and people of color, and they kind of got it, but the police were very slow and very resistant, and were not very reluctant to agree to a policy. And one of the reasons was, and for us it was, a really important part of our policy, was that the violence that is committed by law enforcement had to be part of this policy. So if somebody, was a victim of violence, that there would be, that the police would have to recognize it, and it would be counted as violence. And that was the sticking point that the police did not want to have in the policy, that violence committed by law enforcement would be taken seriously. And so it took years, 2 years of going back and forth. They would agree to it, and then there'd be a new chief of police, and they'd take it back. And finally we got really fed up, and we went to the press. And at the same time, the whole case that you probably heard about of a young sex worker who was abused by at least 30 police officers, and that came out, broke out in the press. It was like a massive story. That was just happening when the police were resisting, having the law enforcement piece in the policy. But finally, they did agree to it, and we got 2 policies from the city of San Francisco that are official policies saying that when a sex worker goes to report violence to the police, they cannot arrest her, and the DAs cannot prosecute. And so, that was a tremendous victory to get that. Now, we have it in writing, so if a sex worker comes to us and say, the police refuse to follow up on this case, we have a piece of paper that we can go in and demand that something happen. And so when that passed in 2000, it took us 3 years to get the police to agree to it. And so then a number of us got together and decided, we wanted to make that California-wide, because we were hearing terrible stories of the way police were treating sex workers in Stockton or, other cities, particularly Stockton, California. We've heard a lot of bad things, and we wanted to get that policy extended California-wide. And we did get a legislator to take it up, but we found out that we needed 2/3 majority vote in both the Assembly and the Senate. Now that's really hard to get. But we did, a number of us in the room, Maxine, Kristen, went up, came up to Sacramento, and we had support from other groups. And part of the meeting tonight is really to build support for those kind of efforts, that when we make them, to go into the legislator's office. Because if we have other people with us, it's really strengthening, and we can really win that way. And we did a lot of lobbying. We came up to Sacramento many times, and one of the things that we found was really good was that we went early before the legislative officers had actually read the bill. And so we were introducing them to the bill, and it was the first time they heard about it. And that really worked, because they took a look at it, and so then when it was coming to the floor, they were already familiar with it, and they were it was very unusual for sex workers to be going inside legislative offices, and they were quite shocked sometimes to hear from us, but it was good. And finally, the bill went through the Senate, it went through the committees, and then went through the Assembly, and the governor just signed it in August. So we now have a California-wide bill. And as Margaret mentioned, the year before we started that whole process, in 2013, we had found out when a young woman was brutally attacked and went to claim compensation from the California Victim Compensation Program. They told her, oh no, sorry, we have a regulation that excludes sex workers from getting compensation. And we were totally shocked. We didn't know that there was this blatant discrimination going on. And so we decided with the young woman, and it was particularly Maxine's organization and ours, that took up a campaign to get rid of this discriminatory regulation. And in the process of the campaign, we found out that formerly incarcerated people also were discriminated against and couldn't claim compensation. You come out of prison, you're on parole or probation, you get raped, and forget it. You're also excluded. And so we joined forces with formerly incarcerated prisoner rights groups and fought on that as well. And we had a fantastic campaign. It took us a year, and we won the removal of the regulation from the victim compensation program, and we also won rights for formerly incarcerated people to be able to get compensation. So that was a successful campaign, and we felt, and when we got the final vote at the board hearing, the international press was it was a really big victory, and we were really thrilled to win that. So we've got a lot of gains, and the movement is growing, and we feel really encouraged. And I just wanted to mention something internationally, because we have a sister organization, the English Collective of Prostitutes, and they've been campaigning strongly in the UK. And recently, we got news from them that government research published in the UK, and this is what the research said, this is research by the government, confirms that financial need and criminalization create the, quote, perfect cocktail of conditions for undermining sex workers' safety. So increasingly, governments are being forced to respond to our demands, protesting criminalization, poverty, police racism, and illegality. And that the UK Home Office has done this study, and they have also put forward decriminalization for women working outside and also inside. So things are really on the up and up. We feel it's moving, and we will win decriminalization soon, we hope.